Have you ever wanted to learn blacksmithing? Would you like to make your own tools or even forge the hardware for your woodworking projects? The best way to get started is join a blacksmithing club, like the Artist Blacksmiths of the Western Reserve. These clubs are all volunteer and they teach new blacksmiths, usually for free. If you belong to a club, you can learn from experienced smiths and watch them do advanced projects. And you don't have to waste a bunch of time and money finding an anvil or building a forge. Your local club is just going to have all of that stuff. And you can go to an open forge night and jump right in. Now, if this is your first night, you might get a little intimidated just showing up. After all, you don't want to be this guy. Hey guys, is this where you go to learn some blacksmithing? I brought a hammer. Yeah, that was pretty much me on my first night. So in this video, we're going to get you ready for your first night of blacksmithing. We'll teach you all of the tools and vocabulary and even do a basic project so you'll know what to expect. Let's start with the basics. First, dress for safety. Wear leather work boots and clothes made of cotton or wool. Synthetics like polyester melt when they get hot, so they're dangerous. You should wear long pants, even though I'm wearing shorts. You can bring gloves, but you don't need them. Instead, bring a pair of safety glasses. When you show up, they'll give you a hammer and a pair of tongs. You'll work at an anvil. The top is called the face and the round part is the horn. That's all you need to know for now. Your club will have a forge that runs on either coal or gas. You'll need to heat your steel to a good working temperature. Black is cold. Red is still pretty cold. Orange or dull yellow is hot enough to work. Steel that's heated up to a good orange heat is soft and easy to shape. In this shot, my steel looks dull red, but that's because I'm standing in the sun, and that makes it hard to see those colors. The forge at your club is going to either run on gas or coal. Gas is more popular these days because it's cheaper and it runs at a constant temperature. You can put a piece of steel in a gas forge, it gets up to forging temperature and then just stays there. You can even walk away for a few minutes and your work will be fine. Coal isn't like that. Coal forges have a variable temperature. They run hotter or cooler depending on how much air is being forced through the fire. So a blacksmith might turn that fire up to work on a thicker piece of steel or do forge welding. And the flexibility of coal is why people are still using it. Unfortunately, since the fire can run at different temperatures, it can also burn your work, and you need to pay close attention to that. Anytime your work is in a coal fire, you need to watch it. Don't walk away or look at your phone. And if you see sparks coming out of the top of the fire, pull your piece out right away. If it's sparking like the 4th of July, then it's burning. A burned project is usually ruined, and burning steel is bad for the forge. So you need to check your steel a lot. If you need to walk away from the fire for some reason, take your work out before you go. That's the basics. Now let's make a project. This is called tapering or forging a taper. I'm forming the end of the steel into a point. Keep the steel toward the edge of the anvil and strike the end, giving the steel a quarter turn in between each hit. The goal is a square taper, even if you're working with round stock. The faces should be the same width and length. Once your piece cools down to a reddish black, then it needs to go back in the fire. Then you can keep tapering. Once I work the tip down to a sharp point, I'll forge the taper further back on the stock. I'm making my taper about 2 inches long. This taper is almost done, but I'm making the point very thin and delicate, and I'm smoothing out all the flat surfaces with light hammer blows. This is called planishing, and you can do it when the steel turns black. It's still hot enough for working the surfaces. This taper is the first step in making the classic S-hook. It's a common beginner project, and the next step is making a finial. And a finial is a fancy little curly cue like you see on the bottom of this hook. I'm going to hang a tiny bit of steel off the anvil and hit it gently with the hammer, half on and half off the edge. I push the steel forward a little bit with each strike until it wraps around the edge of the anvil. Once I've got a 90-degree bend, I'll flip the piece over, brace the tongs against my thigh, and strike toward myself, curling the steel more. But now it's cold and it needs a heat. After a few more blows toward me, I tap straight down while lifting my tong hand. This closes up the curve in a neat little circle, and that finial is done. The next thing we're going to do is turn the end with the finial into a curved hook like this. And we actually might want to strike right on that finial detail. But if we do it while it's hot, we're going to squish that detail we just made. So can't do that. So I'm going to get the whole end nice and hot and then quench just the tip in water. This freezes my finial and I can strike right on it as I shape the end into a big curve. It's a lot like making the finial. Strike half on and half off while feeding the bar out over the edge of the anvil. You can also use the horn for this. It kind of depends on who's teaching you. When the end is almost done, I'll give it one more heat and some light taps to finish shaping it. I like the ends of my hooks to look like question marks. That's just my style, and you'll find your own style with practice. I've got one end looking great, and now I want to duplicate that on the other end. The steel is too hot to touch, so I'll lay it on the anvil to rotate and hold it down with my hammer if I need to. Once it's flipped around, I'm ready to work on the other side. Everything on this side is just like the other side. Taper the end, draw it out nice and fine, curl one end over the edge, hit it back towards me, strike down to close it up, quench the tip, and bend the end into a curve. Symmetry is the goal. Whatever you did on the first end, you need to copy that on this end. That means going slower and checking my work more often. You can see my ends aren't quite aligned and both the curves are on the same side, so it's not an S. I'm going to fix both of those things right now. These hooks usually have a decorative twist in the middle. If you're using square stock, the corners make a spiral pattern when you twist. But if you're using round stock, like I am, you won't be able to see the twist. So I'm going to heat up the whole piece with the finials pointing up so they don't burn. Then I'll flatten out the middle of the hook by working both sides. After heating the piece back up, I'll put it in a vise and grab the other end with a twisting wrench. Those flats I made help the twist to show up visually, and since I'm twisting the piece anyway, I can line up the two ends so I have a straight, flat, final piece. You don't have to twist your hook, but it solves a lot of problems all at once. Your piece is going to be covered in scale from the forge, and it will need a good brushing. Usually, one smith holds the piece over the edge of the anvil, and another smith brushes it with long, brisk strokes, holding the brush with both hands. With a little teamwork and communication, you can flip the piece around and work the other end. The brushing is done with the project pretty hot, because that leaves a nicer finish. A good brushing leaves it clean and slightly shiny. Then you can seal that finish by melting on a bit of beeswax and leaving it to cool. This way, you'll get a nice surface that won't rust right away. It also feels nice. So when I was making the hook in this video, I was also doing a review of two inexpensive rounding hammers, and I was also filming the video that you're watching. The upshot of all that is I was really distracted while I was working, and the hook I made was kind of terrible. It's sort of lumpy and crude looking, and I'm not happy with it at all. Here's a much better hook that I forged earlier in the summer, and it's just a lot more graceful and nicer, and I'm really just showing it to you so you don't think I'm a terrible blacksmith. Anyway, the stuff in this video was meant not to get you started smithing, but to let you know what to expect if you go to a club or take a class or take lessons. We're just trying to give you a little jump start. When it comes to this craft, nothing beats one-on-one instruction. I'm a self-taught woodworker, and I think a lot of people can teach themselves woodworking, and I'm sure you can teach yourself blacksmithing, but man, having a teacher and working with other people and not having to get all the equipment yourself, God, that makes things so much easier, and it's worth a little bit of effort. I drive 45 minutes each way every week to go to my local club, and it's completely worth it. You can find local clubs by going to the Abana website. That's the national organization. I will link to that down below. There's also the I Forge Iron discussion forum. Wealth of information there. I really like it. And I found smithing events and meets near me just using Google Maps. So that might work if you're having trouble finding a place close to you. Especially if you're in the States, there are a lot of blacksmithing clubs. So you should be able to find something. I'll put links down below to everything in this video, including my review of those two inexpensive rounding hammers. You might want to pick one of those up before you get started. And this is my first video of 2024. I took a little break, and now I'm back at it, and I'm super excited. If you'd like to see more metalworking content, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you want to see specifically. I hope everybody's having a good start to the new year. I know I am. I'm looking forward to bringing you good content. Patreon.com/Rex Krueger if you'd like to support this stuff. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.